Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Dean McKeown, and I am the Associate Director of the Global Master of Management Analytics Program here at Smith School of Business. We'll have some time for questions at the end of the presentation, so please use that chat box on your screen to ask those questions, and I'll be happy to answer them towards the end. Okay, today I'm going to talk about analytics and business. I'm going to discuss some of the issues and the pitfalls of a digital transformation that companies and society as a whole are looking at right now. I'm also going to look at some of the roles that people, will take on as these transformations happen, and as companies transform. They're going to have some different requirements. I usually just use this Dilbert commercial here, or cartoon, just to sort of it's an awareness that we have in society today about the progression of computing power and artificial intelligence, and it's just something to be mindful of as we're doing this, because we're making some advances very, very quickly, but at the same time, and I'm going to talk about this later, there's a couple of paradigms about artificial intelligence that we should be aware of, and we don't have to worry about it quite so much. So we'll see how quickly the computers start figuring stuff out on their own. Anyway, let's talk about the foundations of success in this new digital world we have. Think of this triangle in the three parts, right, that you see. So number one, you need that strong foundation. That is the verified and trusted data part. We have enough systems now that we can gather tons and tons of data, and we have tremendous knowledge of people sort of at an individual level, and we know companies at a very company level, and some very basic needs, how things flow through, revenue, income, all that kind of stuff. So that data is there, and we can gather that up and hopefully make some decisions with that. The other interesting thing about today's society is that people freely give up their data in exchange for access to applications, our search engines, and to get a coupon or 10% discount off for a loyalty program at a store. So people are willing to give up the data. And we as companies and practitioners of analytics should be aware of that and should take that on and use it responsibly as well. But it's a great bonus for companies to be able to identify customers and that sort of thing. The second level on the triangle really is about analytics itself. And I'm going to talk about this in a slide a little bit later on, but there's really these four different levels or types of analytics that we have that we've sort of working with. There's descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, and ultimately cognitive analytics. And so I'm going to talk a bit more about that, and those are certainly topics that you would learn in our Masters of Management Analytics programs. The third level that you see on our triangle is about decision making. And ultimately what we're looking for in automated decision making, it isn't just artificial intelligence, although I'm pretty confident that we're moving in that direction where computers will make the decisions. But it also relates to people making decisions, right? People in that organization that traditionally have not had the ability or the power to make a decision. But now we're able to make decisions based on the confidence that we have on the data and the analysis that we've done. And so we're not going to need the approval of superiors. So that way decision making can be much faster than it has been in the past. And then when we do actually institute artificially intelligent systems, that decision making can happen, thousands of decisions can be made in a matter of seconds. So it's a burgeoning area and very, very interesting. So here we are with the different types of analytics that we have. This is what we call the Continuum of Analytics. So getting back to the need for the strong foundation, right? You need data and you have to be able to trust that data before you can do any analytics at all. Once you've got that data, you can analyze it and you can use that analysis to discover insights at each of these levels on the continuum. So descriptive analytics describes, what has happened. For example, how many widgets do we manufacture today? What are our sales like? What's our revenue like? And we can use that information to build models to help predict the future. And this is where we get into predictive analytics. The problem we have now is that all models are inevitably wrong. We don't have all the information. It's not complete. So really those models are going to fail us at some point. If you think about currency exchange fluctuations, you never really know where the markets are going to be. If you did, we'd all be super, super wealthy. But you have to take that with a grain of salt. And if your currency exchange if it changes radically, I think of the Canadian dollar falling against the American dollar about 5 or 6 years ago, that was really going to mess up your models and your business plans for the future. So what we want to do, thinking of those models and how inevitably they're going to fail, we need to take our analytics to the next level, and that's the prescriptive analytics level. Now, here in prescriptive, we need to consider how to optimize our operations. What do we need to do today to ensure that we get the outcome we desire? So think about that, back to my example of the currency. If you were hedging currencies at the time, then any kind of currency fluctuation is not going to have that big of an impact on your model. So if you buy up the currency that you're going to be working in that market, then you're going to be all set for that. I think also one of the best examples of this, and certainly one of the first companies to use analytics and what we call dynamic pricing, is the airline industry. Think of that airplane. Every time an airplane takes off with one empty seat, that means that airline has left money on the table. They really need to make sure that that airplane is absolutely full before it takes off. And so the airline industry is very good at using dynamic pricing to make sure that they price those seats according to the market that they've got, and being able to make sure that plane is quite full. And if you just think about your own personal experiences, if you've been on a plane recently, how often do you take off on a plane that's only half full? They're very, very good at understanding customer expectations, the demand that's used on those different types of routes, and also things like canceling flights and stuff to make sure that certain planes do take off full. So there's a lot of operational things that you can do to optimize that operation, and so that's really where we get to this prescriptive analytics. Other industries like hotel industry is another good one for that. Now the final stage of analytics is cognitive analytics. And cognitive analytics uses data for machine learning and automated decision making. So basically, with the cognitive side, it's self-learning, it's automated, and once you've done your analysis, you've got the ideas, what sort of things have to be done in order to make that decision properly, and you can actually program a system today to make those decisions for you. So think about any sort of online purchasing, online credit requests at a bank, credit card applications, that sort of thing. If you don't have to have people look at those applications and approve them, if you can build a system around credit approvals and past credit histories on data, then you're going to be speeding up those changes, and you're going to be able to make some fast decisions very quickly and get more customers. Now this is just the next few slides. I'm going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. I know it's not exactly applicable to analytics, but really it's the next stage of analytics, and certainly where companies want to be now. They want to get into that whole the cognitive analytics piece and the automatic decision making. So AI has many, many different meanings. It's been around for a very long time, almost a half a century. So it's not like it's new. It's just very buzzword sort of thing, because there's a couple of things that are going on in today's society that allow us to start to use artificial intelligence properly. Now inside this, if you notice the slide that I've created here is like a bubble, and you've got the big blue bubble is artificial intelligence, but within that bubble we've got two smaller bubbles. So we've got machine learning and deep learning. Now when you think about machine learning, it's a type or an application of artificial intelligence where machines use data to automatically improve themselves at performing specific tasks. And that's really, really important, because again, it automates that, it takes people out of it, but again, you require the analytics and the good data in order to make sure that that machine is performing the right tasks at the right time. You can imagine if my past example there of, let's say, a credit card application that's online, if you designed a machine and it started making the wrong decisions and was giving credit to people it shouldn't have and not giving credit to people it should have, that's going to cause a great risk to your organization, both on operationally, on giving risk to the wrong or giving credit to the wrong people, but also risk as well as you not following proper procedures or orders, and that your company is going to look very, very bad at the end of that day. Now, deep learning is a little bit different. It's sort of problematic because it actually replicates how the human brain works, and neurologists haven't really got that figured out yet either. but it uses multi-layered neural networks to make these decisions. So the problem we run into is that we don't know how the computer came up to that conclusion, which again prevents high risk situation for a company. If you think about again the credit application, if you can't justify how you came up with that decision, you're going to be in big trouble, and the regulators are going to come down pretty hard on you. So you have to be able to think about that. So we continue to do a lot of research in deep learning and neural networks, and they definitely are very, very quick. And so if you don't have to worry about how you got there or that journey to make a decision, neural networks and deep learning still works very, very well. You think about something as what possibly benign as identifying a picture of a cat and knowing it's a cat rather than a dog. We don't really care how they did it as long as the answer is right. We want to know that that image has been identified as a cat, and that's fine, and that's the perfect application for deep learning at this time. But as we do more research and we learn about that a little bit more, deep learning and neural networks will be very important in future decision making. And again, with the AI paradigm, so there's two ways that AI actually works. And these are paradigms. They can't be changed. They're fundamental to how artificial intelligence is. And the one level is programmatic, right? So we tell the machine how to do it, and it will complete the task that we have instructed it to do. It's very, very simple. But you can think about that. If you don't think through that very carefully, or you sort of incorporate some either bad analytics or bad data bias, that could be very, risky for your company. So if you're instructing the computer how to do something and it turns out to be the wrong decision, you're in a lot of trouble there. And on the other paradigm is learning, right? And this gets back to the machine learning a bit. You show the machine a whole bunch of examples of what is right, and eventually that machine will make similar decisions. It will know what is right. So again, my example of the pictures of cats, you show the machine 1 million pictures of cats, and next thing you know, that machine is going to know how to identify a cat versus a dog, for example. If anybody is a fan of that TV show Silicon Valley, there's a great scene in there about hot dogs and identifying hot dogs. Is it a hot dog, yes or no? That's a perfect example of that. And again, with analytics and AI, there's only two true facts about it. One, you don't know ahead of time what the data will reveal. That's it. You develop a hypothesis, and we have a test and learn sort of methodology here at Smith that you'll be, studying in our programs. But basically, you don't know. You come up with a hypothesis, you identify the data that you want, and you test for that. And you either support your hypothesis, or you learn from the example or that experiment, and you develop a new hypothesis. And you continually do the test and learn until you come up with a solution or an idea or decision-making idea that you're okay with. Another fact is that what this does when you're doing some analytics, it allows you to think and gives you that extra time to think about what's going on. You can filter the signal from the noise quite easily. You can look at the different variables that you're studying, and you can pick and choose and play with that data as much as you want. Again, trying to prove that hypothesis, but taking a look at that, taking some time, looking at the different factors, consider things like correlation and then causality, and but it gives you time to do that without having to act very, very quickly. And the last one is that AI and analytic solutions should and always be tested, right? So once you've done it, you've got it running, you need to test it to make sure that the results are verified and appropriate for what you're looking for. And again, test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. Never stop learning, and keep on testing, looking at different types of data, and making sure you've got the best conclusion that you possibly can. Now, why is this important to organizations? So one of the things this is a great study actually done by MIT. It was done in November 2017. It was published. You can sort of see the reference down there at the bottom. It's called Reshaping Business with Artificial Intelligence. And this screen shows the opportunity that's going on right now in AI and analytics around the world. They basically studied or surveyed CEOs of major corporations throughout North America and Europe. And they came up with some pretty astonishing stats, basically, from the whole adoption of artificial intelligence. And if you look at the screen, 54% of companies have no adoption at all in 2017, which is kind of shocking because, the technology and the computer power are there, but people just aren't there. And if you look at that 22%, they have no plans to have any kind of artificial intelligence. 32% they're thinking about it. They want to do it sometime in the future, but they haven't actually done it. And then you've got 23% of companies maybe have one or two, pilot projects out there. And only 23% of companies have really adopted that. And when you think about that, some of the companies that were surveyed include Amazon, Facebook, and Google, some very highly technical companies. You can think of them in that 5% on the right-hand side, where AI is extensively incorporated in their processes and offerings. And so that presents to me great opportunity for anybody with the skill set to understand data, understand analytics, and understand artificial intelligence and automated decision making. Because if only 5% of organizations are doing it now, there's a 95% need your help, and they're definitely looking for that help right now and today. Other stats coming out of this study too, some very interesting things. 3/4 of executives believe AI will enable their companies to move into new businesses. Almost 85% believe AI will allow their companies to obtain or sustain a competitive advantage. But, and this is a big but, only 1 in 5 companies has actually incorporated AI in some of their offerings or processes, and only 1 in 20 companies has extensively incorporated AI in offerings and processes. And so that really, again, getting back to the opportunity here, is that you've got all these CEOs who think, yeah, we got to do something about AI, and yet nobody's doing anything. And I believe that nobody's doing it because they don't have the people. They don't have the know-how or the knowledge to actually do this stuff, and they need people who are educated in analytics and AI in order to get their companies into the digital world. And this is another quote that I really like to use. Matthew Evans is the Vice President of Digital Transformation at Airbus, and he says, well, strictly speaking, we don't invest in AI. We don't invest in natural language processing. We don't invest in image analytics. We're always investing in a business problem. And this is the crux of everything, right? It's all about the business problem. And that's why, a business degree is much more important, I think, in applying itself in this sort of environment than even a standard, computer science degree, because it has to be applicable to what's going on, right? We need to push our organizations to embrace analytics and to set up the systems that use artificial intelligence to be successful. And basically, you should always think of AI or analytics as a part of the solution, but really you have to identify the business problems. You need the business leaders to come up and say, hey, we need to do this. This is a problem for our organization. And then you should consider analytics and AI as part of the toolkit to solve that business problem. And I think that toolkit is going to be that much more important as we go through. But this is really important right now, is because there's 3 things that have happened in society in the past, even 2 to 5 years ago. Right now, the machine learning algorithms that we've been developing working very, very well. There's a few tools out there that we consider to be like black box tools, but we really have to understand how that answer is reached. So the black box solution isn't perfect for everything. It's okay for some, but not everything. But what we have now is we have computers that are powerful enough that they can evaluate many decisions very, very quickly and then pick the best one. And then that machine can turn around and make that decision for us. We've got computer processing power that's more phenomenal than anything we've ever seen before. We've got massive storage, and we've got great programming language and stuff to do all this with. But one of the most interesting things about computing power today is it's extremely easy to replicate, right? If anybody knows, I'm kind of showing my age when I say this, but I say Control-C, but you can copy code and paste code very, very quickly. So once you've got a system that's been built, you can just modify that system to meet new demands and new needs. You don't have to rebuild it from scratch every single time. It's very easy to replicate. And so, by having one system built, you can have 1,000 or 10,000 systems built within a day. and then modify them accordingly to your needs. So that's one of the biggest opportunities right now. And then there's this whole question about machines exceeding humans, and this whole the point of singularity, where computer intelligence meets and then exceeds human intelligence. We're a long ways away from that because, like I said, with AI paradigms, you actually have to have people to teach these computers how to do things still. But at some point, we'll get there where computer intelligence can sort of help us make decisions much faster than people can. And ultimately, you should be aware that there are certain professions that are going to be affected. We talk about this as Industry 4.0. There's some significant changes coming to companies, and professions that have never been affected before are going to be. This is not about as simple as applying electricity into a factory. There's going to be some white-collar jobs that are going to be affected as well. And these jobs are not going to disappear, but they will be changing. And so an awareness of technology, the digital transformation, analytics, data, all that kind of stuff is going to be very important. So when you look at certain professions like lawyers, accountants, call center workers, and many other white-collar roles, these jobs may be augmented through computer systems or ultimately replaced. But I think they're not replaced as they are, but they're replaced with different types of jobs and different types of duties that will be completed in the future. So just to reiterate, AI is a potential solution, and then you have to identify what your business problem is and see what AI can do for you. And then back to this part, the need for data, training, and algorithms. So basically, we know that we can generate business value through the effective training of analytics and AI systems and algorithms. In the MIT study that I talked about, less than half the respondents said their organizations understood the processes required to train algorithms for the data needs of algorithms. These algorithms require lots and lots of data to be used effectively and proficiently. Now, unsurprisingly though, respondents at successful organizations rate their companies higher in several general management and leadership areas. Things like vision and leadership, openness and ability to change, long-term thinking, close alignment between business and technology strategy, and effective collaboration. So it's not about algorithm knowledge or statistical knowledge, it's about business knowledge and being able to work in those softer skills that you really need to push your agenda forward and help your company develop a strong strategy. And working together hand in hand with the business side and the technology side, that's where the true success is going to lay. And this study actually reaffirms that quite well. And so we know that with any kind of technology-driven transformation, it's essential for a high-performing company to have those softer skills in your organization. So when you're thinking about yourself, today's managers, you really need to learn, study, and understand what data analytics and AI can do for you and your organization. You need to develop a perspective on implementation. How's this going to work? How do I organize my business around these new tools and these new opportunities? And you need to develop an expansive view of your competitive landscape. One of the worst things you can do is miss your competitors as they fly along. We think of companies like, in Canada anyway, Future Shop and Sears, and you think about the effect that a company like Amazon had on them. I mean, Amazon just started as a textbook reseller. So you think about how far they've come in such a short period of time, and you've got to keep an eye on that competitive landscape and make sure you're ahead of what your competitors are doing, but always watch them. And so I would give two pieces of advice here. Their goal should always be to create value for yourself, your customers, and society as a whole, and you will always win by doing more, not by doing the same thing cheaper. So that's very important. Those successes of the organizations rely on their managers learning about data and analytics, and we need to design our companies around this data, and this will help us all make the right decisions going forward. So we've read this great book called Human and Machine by Dougherty and Wilson in 2018, so it's relatively new. And they divide people into three categories. So we've got trainers, explainers, and sustainers. And as the digital transformation proceeds, we're going to need each of these types of people to manage our organizations properly. So you think about this with the trainers, we're going to need people who can actually instruct systems on how they should perform certain tasks and how they should, act a little bit more like humans. The explainers are the ones who are going to make sense of what's happening, right? The ones who can explain to the regulators what's going on inside that black box, how a company is making decisions, and how you justify that decision is the right one. And then you're going to need these sustainers. Okay, these are individuals who act as the watchdogs and the ombuds for people in your organization to make sure that every step and every decision that's being made is done, freely under the regulations of things like privacy and that kind of stuff, and to make sure that your ethical considerations are strong and certainly justifiable. And inside those three people, we in organizations have to be aware of any kind of bias that might exist in an organization, and also in the data and in the actual training of the systems, to make sure that the trainers are not all of one type of person with a similar bias, because that can cause great grief going forward. Okay, and here we are, there's going to be, 20,000 hires. So this is also from the Human and Machine book. I think I included this slide primarily because it's a good evidentiary piece of a company whose technology capacities far surpassed their ethical capabilities. So Facebook was able to do a lot of work, expand globally, attract a lot of attention and a lot of support and a lot of users, but at the same time, they kind of missed the ball on some of the societal risks that were associated with that, and some of the ethical concerns that have come up. And so, Facebook is now playing catch up with all this stuff. And I think as we start moving into digital transformation, we as managers and organizations have to really think about the ethical capabilities right from the very start, and how we're doing this and how we're working our organization, how we're using data in this. Companies around the world are hiring analytics professionals. We have the ability today and the responsibility to do the analytics that benefit people and society, as well as the bottom line of your organization. So here's another screenshot from that MIT study. Again, we're looking at different levels, right? At the organizational level, you're talking existing workers are going to need to change their skill set. So 84% of companies agreed with that. The companies are wanting to push this agenda forward. They think 79% of companies think that's going to improve their productivity, and another 75% of companies see technology and data and analytics as augmenting the current workers' skill sets. So you think of my last screen about having an effect on lawyers and that sort of thing. Being able to do research based on text analytics and sentiment analysis and case study analysis is going to help lawyers tremendously. They're not going to have to go sorting through all those books in the library anymore. They'll be able to do it with just a couple of clicks and a couple of search boxes, and speed up that quite a bit. So the augmentation of law is going to be absolutely phenomenal. If you notice, only 47% of companies actually feel that their workforce is going to be reduced. So they see it as a repurposing of work as opposed to elimination of workers. And so that gets me to the bottom two bars on the personal level. You've got 70% of people say, I hope that AI will do some of the current tasks in my job. I don't know about you, but one thing that I've always been kind of puzzled about is why we can't get a good calendar scheduler out there that brings calendars in together from everybody to book a meeting or schedule a meeting. That seems to me a pretty good AI solution. So hopefully, AI is going to help with that kind of thing in the future. So that's one of the tasks that I want to have fixed. And only 31% fear that AI will do some of the current tasks of their job. So there is some fear out there about what AI is going to do. But really it's about being prepared, being ready for the digital transformation, being educated about the digital transformation, and making sure that you're not one of those people that fear AI and technology, that you're one of the people that embrace it and figure out how to use it in your organization. Okay, now just a couple of quick slides about our Global Master of Management Analytics program. Basically, here's the program structure and the curriculum of this program. really covers a lot of things that I spoke about today, about this bridge between the technical and the business side, being able to identify a business problem and then identify the technology, the data that's going to help you solve that business problem. All of our curriculum in this program is really geared towards applied use of it. We're going to be looking at real case studies using real data, and on the same token of that, it is a team-based program. So you're going to learn about these softer skills, about how to work with other people, how to influence and persuade, how to make solid presentations, how to write well, all those other communication skills that are so important to be successful. If you think about this, you can do the best analysis in the world, but if you can't explain what it is and you can't actually pitch it or sell it to the executives, it's going to sit on a shelf somewhere and never get used. So our Global MMA program is really going to support that and give you some expertise and some experience working with that. Here's a quick look at the curriculum and the individual courses in the Global MMA program. Again, if you look at these courses, what we're looking for, what we're trying to do here is provide you with a very holistic view of an organization. So we want you to understand some of the troubles and trials and tribulations that different areas within your organization are going to be having. So we have a marketing analytics course, a financial course, we have supply chain management, that sort of stuff. That's all in there. And so you'll get an idea of not only the problems, but what kind of data is available across your organization. And again, building up that foundational piece of verified and trusted data. And by knowing what data exists and how to organize it, how to save it, and then most importantly, how to distribute it or provide access to it, that's going to make a difference in a successful company and a not successful company. And so these are some of the courses that you can learn how to do that. And then with the Global MMA program, we have 4 required residential sessions. So we'll start the program in Toronto in May 2019. So that's not very far away. So if you're interested in starting that program, you should fill out an application or contact us very, very soon so we can start that process. But we're going to have our second residential sessions in Mannheim, Germany. And then we travel to Hong Kong in January, and then we're back in Toronto for March for the final residential session. In between those residential sessions, we have our online courses. So there are 6 courses that are offered completely online. Some of those courses, we've designed them to have some synchronous delivery as well. You'll be actually working with the professors and TAs and that sort of thing in real time. But most of it can be done sort of at your time, at your pace. Within the parameters of the 2-month window. And during this, because it is a global MMA, we're going to be working with our international partners to bring in international content. So we really want to know what's going on in Europe, particularly with the Industry 4.0, and we also want to know what's going on in the emerging markets around Hong Kong and Asia. Okay, so now I'm going to pass this over to one of our application advisors, Terri Lynn, and she's going to talk to you about the application process and the admission requirements. Terri Lynn.
Hi everyone, my name is Terri Lynn, like Dean said. I'm an application advisor. I work with the MMA Toronto program and the Global MMA program. My role as an application advisor is to guide applicants through the application process, basically there to help make the whole process smooth and easy for you. I'm there to help you present a strong case so I can review cover letters, provide feedback on how to strengthen your file, and I'll help with scheduling your interview and everything from there. We don't have any hard deadlines. We do work on rolling admission. However, if you are interested in the May 2019 intake, I would, like Dean said, recommend getting started as soon as possible. A good guideline would be to have your application in no more or no less than 2 months prior to the program start date to give yourself enough time to get set up in the program. There's no fee to apply, so if you're interested in just seeing if you'd be eligible for the program, I will be reaching out right after, probably likely tomorrow sometime, with an email just giving you the recording of the webinar, and if you're interested in having a preliminary assessment, you can just send me your resume and transcripts and I can give you some details on your application. What we're looking for to be eligible for this program, an undergraduate degree from a recognized university with at least 1 math or stats course that covers hypothesis testing, linear regression, and their applications. Typically, we're looking for a minimum of about 2 years of work experience. However, we will still consider applicants without any work experience if they have good academic backgrounds. And a GMAT score may be waived, depending what I'll look for is the grades in your undergraduate degree and specifically the statistics courses. From there, I'll be able to determine quantitative ability and determine if you are eligible to have the GMAT requirement waived. After I complete the preliminary assessment, I'll ask for, and if I consider you a strong candidate for the program, I will request 2 references from you. So a colleague and a superior will ask for their full name and email address, and I'll send them an online reference form. We'll also need a cover letter covering why you're pursuing an MMA at this stage, and any professional goals you may have and how the MMA might help you get there. Once we have all of your documents, we'll schedule you for an interview with Dean if you're looking at the Global MMA Program. And that'll be a conversation just to ensure you're a good fit for the program and that the program's a good fit for you. Typically, we can have an admissions decision within 1 to 2 weeks of that interview.
Okay, thank you very much, Terri Lynn. And so that actually concludes. So if you have any questions, there's my contact information on the screen. If you have questions about the application process, I encourage you to fill out one of our online forms or contact Terri Lynn. She knows much more about that whole process than I do. If you're interested in some analytics and some questions about what I spoke about today, I'm happy to take those emails as well. And then there's my LinkedIn profile on the screen. So again, happy to have you in part of my connection. Okay, and so some of the questions we have. Has the program received approval yet? So we are actually waiting this week. I believe that the government entities were meeting, and so we're just waiting to hear about that. So we should know that within, well, hopefully this week or next week. So basically what that means is that we aren't actually enrolling people in the program until it has been approved by the Ontario government. And so that is, we're still accepting applications and we're queuing people up. So as soon as that approval is there, then we can start enrolling people right away. Now, the second question, are all residential sessions mandatory? Yes, they are. So this is what we call a cohort-based professional master's program. So the program itself takes 12 months to complete. It's professional in nature in that you can work full-time as you take this, but you do have to attend all those residential sessions. We only offer the program itself once a year. So if something came up unexpectedly, some kind of an illness or something, and you were unable to make a residential session, then you would have to wait a full year until the next residential session to be able to do that and complete that task. So it is very important that you look at the dates of those residential sessions and plan accordingly. However, we do understand that unforeseen circumstances can occur, and so we can sort of defer your graduation for another year. Are any internships provided during the program with industry partners? So not at this time. So internships are very, very interesting. We do have a full career advancement center that students of this program have access to. They maintain quite a large database of open positions, including internships. So there's nothing to say that you can't apply for those internships, get them. We do not place people in that. However, another part is because this is the global MMA program, people are going to be living all around the world. And so it's going to be very hard to actually place people in different companies and that kind of stuff. So we'll be looking at that as we go along, but we as the Smith School of Business, we do have an extensive alumni and business network around the world, and so if it's something you were looking for some work, we could probably help you with that, and certainly our Career Advancement Center has a lot of opportunities you could look at. We do anticipate that most people in the Global MMA program will be working full-time as they take it because of the delivery mode. But again, if that's something you're kind of questioning about, you can talk to Terri Lynn about different options in that. Okay, and I've just got one other question here. How would this program compare to an MBA? So if you think of an MBA is really, again, very sort of a holistic view of an organization. An MBA, you're going to have courses in economics, you're going to have courses in human resources, strategy, math and stats, right? So there is some sort of duplication between the two types of programs, but really they're very complementary. Our MMA curriculum is geared 100% towards analytics and towards data analysis and business decision making. And so we have had quite a few people who have done both an MBA and an MMA. And I think that's really a sweet spot of having those two degrees is very important. So I would never say that one is less important than another, but they're both equally important. And I guess really it depends on your career trajectory, right? If you're planning on getting up to the C-suite and you want to do it through a particular mode or method, certainly an MBA is going to help you with that. But if you want to help with the digital transformation of your organization or see that as one of your great successes in data analytics and pushing forward with those kinds of projects, the MMA is a good start. What kind of career support is provided through the program for individuals trying to get into a data analytics role? So it's been one of the interesting experiences we've had. I've been working with the MMA program and Smith for quite a number of years. 7 years ago, I used to have to spend a lot of time on the phones explaining to HR people what analytics was and why their companies should be hiring people. I don't have that problem anymore. HR people are calling us on a very constant basis, looking for people with the skill sets to understand data and analytics and how they can fit into that organization. You'll certainly see a lot more titles now about analytics that are included, data scientists, those sorts of things. Those roles are all there. And so I think that, again, when you're doing any kind of a career or job search, it really comes down to you, the individual. We can only help. We can point you in the right directions. We can coach you to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. But ultimately, getting the job will be your responsibility. We certainly have a very, very high placement rate with our Toronto-based MMA program. I think just about everybody is employed within a couple of months of graduating. And those who were employed and continue to be employed see a pretty good bump in their incomes as well as they take an MMA and take on more senior roles in their organizations. Now, is there a correlation between the global MMA and the MMA Toronto program? So yeah, there's definitely, the curriculum itself is virtually identical. The global MMA, we have one extra course, an AI and ethics policy course. And then we also have a capstone project. So there's a bit more going on there with the global MMA, but we have virtually the same curriculum, the same faculty teaching in both programs, and the same sort of program administration team as well behind the scenes. I mentioned Terri Lynn does application advising for both MMA and global MMA. And the same thing goes, we have what we call an analytics and AI ecosystem here at Smith. And we're a pretty tight-knit group of people, and we're always working together both to improve our programs, but it's our coursework and business development pieces and things like that. So there's a lot of correlation between the two programs. Okay, and I think that's it for the questions for today. So again, thank you very much for joining me with this webinar today. And if you are thinking about applying to our global MMA or even the MMA program, I encourage you to, either start with the online form or reach out to Terri Lynn directly and start that application. And it was great talking to you today, and thank you very much.